My sister's husband bribed my son to take a DNA test, and the results destroyed our family. Mom, Uncle Rick gave me $100 to spit in a tube, my 16-year-old son Tyler announced casually as I drove him home from soccer practice. I nearly swerved off the road. He did what? Yeah, he said it was for some family ancestry project. Cool, right. I've been watching those new headphones. My hands tightened on the steering wheel as ice filled my veins. This wasn't about ancestry. My sister Moten's husband Rick had been acting strange around Tyler for months, making odd comments about how Tyler didn't look like his father, my husband Dave. I'd brushed it off as Rick being his usual tactless self. Now I understood he was suspicious enough to secretly DNA test my son. When did this happen? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Last weekend when you and Dad went to that wedding, Aunt Matten and Uncle Rick watched us, remember? That night after Tyler went to bed I called Rick. When he answered, I didn't bother with pleasantries. You paid my son to take a DNA test behind my back? Silence then. Lauren, I can explain. Explain what? That you violated my son's privacy, that you are questioning whether Dave is his father? Look, I noticed things, okay? Tyler looks nothing like Dave. He doesn't have his height, his eye color, nothing. And I've seen how weird you act around Brian. Brian, my stomach dropped. Brian was Dave's best friend since college. We'd all been close for years. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything anymore, Rick said coldly. I have proof. The results came back yesterday. Tyler isn't Dave's biological son. The world stopped. My deepest secret, the one I'd buried for 17 years, was suddenly exposed by my sister's husband of all people. You had no right, I whispered. Dave has every right to know he's raising another man's child. Rick shot back. If you don't tell him by the end of the week, I will. I hung up and sank to the kitchen floor, my mind racing back to that one mistake so many years ago. Dave and I had broken up briefly during college. In my hurt and confusion, I turned to Brian for comfort. We'd slept together once, and I regretted it immediately. Dave and I reconciled the following week, and when I discovered I was pregnant months later, I convinced myself the baby was Dave's as Tyler grew. I occasionally noticed traits that reminded me of Brian, but I pushed those thoughts away. Dave adored Tyler, and they shared so many interests and mannerisms that biology seemed irrelevant, but now Rick had forced my hand. I spent 3 sleepless nights contemplating my options, tell Dave everything, Denny it all, beg Rick to keep quiet. None seemed right. On the 4th night, Dave found me crying in our bathroom. Lauren, what's going on? You've been acting strange for days. Looking into his concerned eyes, the eyes of the man who had loved me and Tyler unconditionally for 17 years, I couldn't lie anymore. I told him everything about the brief indiscretion with Brian during our breakup, about my pregnancy and my desperate hope that the baby was his, about Rick's DNA test. Dave sat in stunned silence, then left the house without a word. He didn't return until morning. When he finally came back, his eyes were red from crying, but his voice was calm. I need to know if you've been faithful since Tyler was born. Yes, I said immediately. Dave, it was one mistake 18 years ago when we weren't even together. I've never, and Brian, does he know? No one knew until Rick did this. Dave nodded slowly. Tyler is my son. Innocent doesn't change that. I've raised him, loved him, taught him to ride a bike and throw a baseball. But I need time to process this. Dave moved into our guest room. We told Tyler we were going through something, but reassured him it wasn't about him. He saw through that immediately. Is this because of Uncle Rick's spit test? He asked one morning. Dave and I exchanged looks. Why do you ask that? I ventured. Because Aunt Madam called crying yesterday, saying Uncle Rick ruined everything and she's sorry. The family unraveled quickly after that. My sister stopped speaking to Rick and moved in with our parents. Rick, facing universal condemnation for his actions, still defends himself, saying he just wanted the truth. Brian, when finally told, was shocked but agreed to respect whatever relationship Dave wants to have with Tyler. As for Dave and Tyler, they had their own private conversation.